Today, we're diving into a question that's jumped right out of science fiction and landed squarely in our courtrooms. When a piece of code causes real-world harm, who's actually responsible? The answer, as you're about to see, is way more complicated than you might think. So let's just picture this. A self-driving car makes a split-second decision, and it leads to an accident. The car is empty. The code worked exactly as it was designed to. So who's to blame? The owner? The programmer? What about the company that built the whole thing? This isn't a hypothetical anymore. And believe me, our legal system is racing to figure it out. Okay, before we can even begin to talk about the future of AI in the law, we've got to look back. We need to understand the fundamental centuries-old principles that decide who's responsible when things go sideways. At the very heart of this whole thing is a concept called liability. You can think of it like a legal chain, this bond of necessity that connects a wrongful act to its consequence or its remedy. It's basically the law's way of saying, hey, you caused the problem, so you're now tied to the solution. So, who can be held liable? Well, in the eyes of the law, it has to be a legal person. Now, this doesn't just mean a human being. Corporations, for example, are considered legal persons because they can have both rights and responsibilities. And this, right here, raises a huge question. Could an AI ever get that same status? Could it ever be held directly accountable for its own actions? Now, to be held criminally liable, it's not just about what you do, it's also about what you are thinking. This is all wrapped up in a foundational Latin saying, the act does not make a person guilty unless the mind is also guilty. It sounds simple, but the implications are massive. This gives us the two key ingredients for criminal liability. First, you've got the wrongful act itself. That's the actus reus. And second, you need the guilty mind, or the mens rea. You have to have both. It's not enough to prove someone did something. You also have to prove they had a blameworthy state of mind, that they meant to do it or were at least criminally reckless. And this is exactly where AI just throws a giant wrench into the whole system. All of a sudden, we're dealing with something that can perform incredibly complex actions, but it doesn't have a mind in any way the law has ever understood that word. And here it is, the core of the problem. Human intent is about willful action. It's the whole basis for legal guilt. But in AI, it just follows its programming. It doesn't have subjective awareness, it doesn't have a conscience, and because of that, it has no mens rea. This is the legal wall we keep slamming into. I mean, how can you hold something accountable that's fundamentally incapable of having a guilty mind? But believe it or not, the law has actually dealt with non-human actors before. Way back in ancient legal systems, if an ox killed someone, the ox itself was considered guilty of homicide. It would literally be stoned to death. The law treated the animal as the one responsible. Of course, our thinking has evolved quite a bit since then. Today, we get that an animal can't have legal rights and duties. It has no mens rea. So we don't put the animal on trial. Instead, that responsibility gets shifted up the chain to a human, the owner. The law looks for a person who had control and a duty of care. So this model of look past the actor to the owner, well, that's pretty much exactly how our legal system handles AI today. It bypasses the machine itself to find the human who is ultimately responsible. So let's follow that chain. The law traces this chain of human agency. You start asking questions. Was the developer negligent in how they designed the AI? Did the user do something reckless or use it in a way it was never intended for? Or maybe the corporation failed in its duty to make sure the system was safe before it was ever released. As it stands right now, the answer to who's responsible is always a person, somewhere on this chain. Okay, so far we've been focused on AI causing harm. But what happens when an AI creates something amazing? The exact same questions about responsibility and ownership come up, but in a totally different arena, authorship. Just think about what modern AI can do. These tools can perform tasks that not long ago we thought were uniquely human. They can research topics, they can write impelling scripts, they can generate all kinds of creative content. For all intents and purposes, they're becoming creative engines. Which brings us to this billion-dollar question. If an AI, on its own, comes up with a hit song or a brilliant screenplay, who gets the credit? Who owns the copyright? Is it the user who typed in the prompt? The company that built the AI? Or does the work belong to nobody at all because there wasn't a human author? It's pretty clear our old rules are being stretched to their absolute limits. So How do we build a legal framework that can actually handle these new realities? Well, the answer might not be about finding one single perfect rule. It might be about adopting a whole new way of thinking about the law itself. To tackle a problem as mind-bending as AI, we might need a new way to think. Legal scholar Yu-Ting Chen points out that the law often leans on powerful metaphors to connect abstract ideas to the real world. For AI, the metaphor we might need is that of an engineer. And that brings us to a theory called social engineering from the jurist Roscoe Pound. Now, this isn't about manipulation. It's the idea that law is like a design process. The goal is to build a society that runs as smoothly as possible by balancing all the competing interests that exist within it. From this point of view, the job of a lawmaker is a lot like an engineer's. The goal isn't just to apply old rules to new problems. It's to actually design a new legal structure that meets the maximum number of society's needs with a minimum amount of friction and conflict. And these are the interests that have to be balanced. We want public safety from dangerous AI for sure, but we also want the incredible social and economic progress that comes from innovation. We want to protect our individual rights, but we also need to make sure our core social institutions are secure. There are no easy answers here. It's all about trade-offs. Pound's theory actually gives us a roadmap. Step 1, you identify all the competing claims, from the developers, the users, the public, everyone. Then, you have to decide which of those claims actually deserve legal protection. Step 3, you define the boundaries of that protection. And finally, you build the new laws to make it all happen. It's a deliberate, systematic way to build law for a completely new era. And this leads us to the final and most important question. As we start engineering the laws for our future with AI, we have to make some tough choices. What do we prioritize? Is it rapid innovation above all else? Or is it public safety, the rights of giant corporations, or the rights of individual creators? There is no single right answer, and the legal world we build for tomorrow is going to be a direct reflection of the values we decide are most important today.